So as I've said, going to go through the WTC Terrain. World Team Championship is what WTC stands for. They kind of happen every year. It's a very large teams event, 8-man teams. The location varies slightly, but has been in Austria last year and Belgium before that, I believe, recently. So this is the video for the latest map pack, kind of relevant for 10th. These are terrain format is used at my events, the singles events, as well as at the Kent Teams event coming up in March. So all of the rules for WTC Terrain, the layouts specifically, as well as the charging guide, which I will go through in a later video, are available from that link there. All of this will be in the description, so obviously the links are easier to find. On the map we'll come to later, it has a coordinate system that it uses, and you can use the red arrow for the first coordinate, or pair of coordinates, and the yellow denotes the second one. So that make a bit more sense when I show you the physical map. Again, should have put pieces, not type, but there are 3 terrain pieces. There is the tallest ruin, then kind of medium height ruin, and then containers. They are the only 3 that are used on all layouts and used consistently. They are very specifically designed, so they have very specific measurements, so it is very consistent across any event you go to that you should play on. Should all kind of be those measurements to be the correct size. All of the acrylic plates are 12" by 6". So I'm just going to kind of flip to another screen just so I can show you. So here we have a container. They are always double stacked. This is an example of the Orc container, which is 2.5 inches wide, 5 inches, and then 5 inches in length. So it gets the 5 inches from always having 2 stacked on top of each other. They're 2.5" by 2.5" otherwise. So they follow the container rules, which I will go through as well, because they are not in any other format. WTC is the only one that uses something other than ruins at the moment. So we then have the short ruin, which, as you can see, has windows. There are no ground floor kind of openings, so they don't exist basically on WTC. What you see is what you get. So those windows are open, you can draw a line of sight through them, but there are no ground floor anywhere. That's the Necron set. And then you have representing the largest ruin, which will completely block me out, is the Chaos one, which, as you can see, is quite tall, has 2 floors that models can stand on. For this one, it's 33mm, so obviously if you have a model that is more than 32, something bigger than an intercessor base, it won't be able to fit on that because you can't have wobbly model. And then you have, on this one is 51mm or 53, one of the two. 51, I was right. So a 50mm size base will fit on there, anything bigger won't. So again, just it's really clear and makes it easier for players to understand. And then you have the acrylic plates, which give you the terrain footprint, which are the 12 by 6 plates. All of them are the same size. There is no variation, unlike GW that obviously has different ones, and UKTC doesn't use them. So you may have come across them if you played GW, but they are all the same, which makes life easier in some regards. So again, within the first couple of pages of the WTC pack from the link at the beginning, it kind of gives you the exact of what you'll see. The blue plates represent tall ruins, the red plate represents short ruins. So kind of once you know that, it's easier to kind of recognize where pieces of terrain are going to go. I'm going to go through containers in a minute, because they are a terrain type that, based on the teams event, several people got most of the way through the event before asking how containers functioned. So that's part of why I wanted to do this video, just to kind of clarify things for people and make it so that people that haven't been to the events before kind of feel a bit more confident with the terrain. They have also included this really useful kind of piece of information, because it was a frequently asked question: what can fit underneath the floors? Because people try and get their models to fit underneath to hide it effectively. So you have very much a space that is 230 by 75 by 78 where they can fit. which is free vertical space. So it can be taller than 78. As soon as you're taller than 78 mil, though, you cannot fit underneath the first floor. So I think models like Rhinos, depending on how they're modelled, and that sort of size, maybe even up to an Impulsor, I think off the top of my head fits underneath, but you can't fit your Warlord Titan underneath. So again, it might come down to how it is posed. You can't just lift the floors up, remove the floors to fit your model underneath. If it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit. So we then have terrain types. You have the ruins, these ones, which follow the core rules for the ruins. The terrain feature is defined by the 12 by 6 inch plate. Once you're in that, you're in the terrain feature. You can only get plunging fire on WTC if you are stood on the second floor, the top one of the larger ruins. You cannot get it anywhere else, and it might be tricky to actually set that up depending on what army you run and kind of what you're facing. Same as usual, infantry, Primarchs, for some reason, beasts and Belisarius Call can move through them as if they were not there. They can't end a move halfway through, and it says Primarchs can, but they're too big. But infantry, beasts, Primarchs, cool, and fly models can be set up on any floor as long as they fit. So they can't overhang, so you can't have Be'lakor raining down fire from the top floor because his base is too big. Visibility is if you're outside the acrylic plate or terrain plate, whatever the event uses, you can't be seen. I'll show that in a minute to kind of help with that, and there'll be reference later in the video when doing physical setting up of terrain. If you're within it, then you are kind of, if you can be seen, you can be seen. It becomes true line of sight is what it's called. And then benefit of cover, again, it comes down to if you are within the terrain feature, you have to be wholly within to get the benefit of cover, or not be fully visible, one of the two. If you are not wholly within and can be wholly seen, you don't get cover. So that is ruins. Containers, again, these pieces of terrain that are not very common unless maybe you do a lot of narrative. They are not breachable. You cannot move through them unless you have a special rule, something like Solitaire or Shining Spears, or a strat, Thunderwolf Cavalry, that allows you to ignore terrain features. You can't move through it. So that's slightly different to ruins and quite different to what you might have come across before. Because there are two of them stacked on top of each other, they're 5 inches tall. They work off true line of sight, so if you have a model stood on one side and then a model stood on the other, they're not going to be able to see each other because there's a physical thing blocking line of sight. If you had a model that was tall enough it could see over, or be seen over, then you're going to be able to kind of interact with it, shoot it. So yeah, so it's just something to be aware of, is that obviously containers function quite differently to ruins in terms of predominantly moving through. And then you can get cover if you are not fully visible. You don't get it if you're wholly within, so standing on top doesn't give you cover. Just as a reference point, you can climb over them, but you have to kind of account for the entire movement, which is 5 inches up, 5 inches down, 2.5 inches across, and then your base movement. So you're kind of looking at 13 to 14 inches minimum movement to go all the way up and over. And same for models flying, they have to account for a bit of kind of movement across as well. So just two very quick examples again for the being within and not within. Repulsor tank is not within the terrain because only a small portion of the tank is actually within that footprint outlined. All of the Tyranid models can see it because it is within the terrain. The Unit C can see it anyway because of the fact that it's just got true line of sight there. Unit B can see it because they are wholly within, and Unit A can see it but not be seen back because the repulsor is in the terrain, they are not. You then have image 8. All of this is from the core rules. The tank is wholly within because every part of it, sponsons and little random bits included, is within the terrain feature, within that terrain plate. It can therefore be seen and see everything there. Because it is wholly within the terrain feature as well, it would benefit from cover unless a unit had a rule to ignore cover. But very quickly, just as a reference visual image, it's useful to kind of check if you are intending for your unit to shoot or not be shot, making sure that they are appropriately within or not within the terrain feature. It does include individual infantry models as well, so if you only have a model halfway into the terrain feature, it is not wholly within, it can't see but can be seen. So something to bear in mind. Again, worth reading. The first link has this within that WTC pack. It just clarifies all the different elements of the terrain that you will see on the map as well. So the first one, the little eye symbol, shows that models cannot draw line of sight through gaps that have been marked with that symbol. Just again, clarifies things, saves calling a TO or a judge or having that discussion with your opponent. Second one denotes if you can't hold an objective from the other side of a wall. Again, stops that conversation. Then you have models that are on a knight size base, i.e. knights. Genuinely can't remember any other ones at the moment, but there are others. 110mm oversized base can or cannot pass through the gap marked gap normally. So that means without climbing up and over or breaching through the terrain if they are a towering knight model with character. And then you have on the containers specifically, if it's got the green knight symbol, a model on 110mm base or smaller can move around the container from all sides normally without having to climb over or do anything special. You then have that the ruins need to be placed approximately 22mm from the edge. This is to mean that no model can stand outside of the ruin and stand within the terrain feature to gain the benefit of cover, because no model has a 22mm base. Smallest is 25, and they're kind of less far and few between now. The other one to note is the short ruin has a section that is counted as less than 4 inches. So for example, if you're a Defiler or a Imperial Knight model, you can or Chaos Knight move over that using the special rules they have to ignore terrain that's less than 4 inches. So that's nicely clarified, allows some freedom of movement. And then again specifies that the second floor is 6 inches up, 3 inches up for the other floors in between, so you can get plunging fire from the top. If two pieces are joined together, they are separate terrain pieces, so you can't stand in the blue and see all the way out the other side of the red. And then on a couple of maps it lists, it denotes a precise measurement for the gap that is in between, so it's clear to both players that certain models can fit through there without getting halfway through the game and suddenly realising you either haven't measured it correctly or the player's plan isn't going to work, so that's quite useful. Here you have the 7 layouts, which each deployment each deployment set has a specific set of maps. So there's a hammer and anvil set, Crucible, Battle, Search and Destroy, and Tipping Point. There are beta maps for Sweeping Engagement and Dawn of War, but they're not really used by WTC at the moment because they choose not to. Also, not everyone's always a fan of those deployments. So you have 7 different ones. If you are going to a Teams event, you will see some number of these depending on the size of the team event. There is only 7 versions because 4 and 5 is a repetition. Quite often singles will tend to use the central ones there, so 3, 4, 5 and 6 are the ones that tend to be used. You might find one that uses something different, but they're the standard ones. So each set of deployment zone has a different set of layouts. So here you have an example of a hammer and anvil one. As you can see, the blue ruins, the tall ones, are round the edge, and you have the measurements here. I mentioned that yellow and that red, so you measure the red one first and then the yellow. Oh god, we're gonna have to go back. This is why I don't like it. Yeah, there you go, the red one first and then the yellow. I was right. So you measure this one, then measure this one, and kind of repeat that process all the way around. Some of them only have a single red because you only actually need that to line that up, and makes it a little bit easier. Again, here you can see that a knight cannot move through this space here because there's a crossed out knight in the red, and then green, a knight will be able to fit through that space. So it does just kind of showcase examples there. There is a website I found a while ago that I found really useful to help me with setting up the terrain pieces. Random website name, but tabletop.labrador.dev. It also has it for UKTC and GW, and possibly some other formats, but they're the only ones I play on, so I haven't looked at any of the others. I find this a bit easier to read. I find it a bit easier to use. However, it's useful to have these ones as reference, just purely because then you can check whether a knight can fit and kind of have that discussion. It also includes the objective marker points on it as well, but they're not numbered, so you'll have to kind of check for where they're meant to be. But it does give an arrow that kind of denotes the side it should be coming from. So this one is 5 inches from the shortboard edge, and then it is 16 from the longboard edge that way. So it kind of makes it a little bit easier to read, I find. The next step I'm going to go through is setting up the terrain itself, just to kind of show a couple of tricks, hopefully, of how to set it up a bit quicker and a bit more accurately, so that you can kind of get to playing the game quicker with your opponent. I'll also kind of demonstrate what the look of the terrain is as a complete setup, and kind of go from there. Here for this first bit of kind of setting up, you can see I've got a table set up. I'm going to be setting up Crucible Battle. You've got the tabletop Labrador one, and then the proper WTC from their map pack. Just going to show you kind of what I would do initially when setting up the tables. I've got some tinted acrylic plates just to kind of help them show up a bit better on the video. I don't normally use them at events. I use the clear ones because it's nice to have the matte kind of showing through. I am always open to change, but yeah. So I do apologise if the audio quality is a bit different. I'm obviously not using the same mic I use on the laptop, so we'll look to kind of fix that in future ones if I do this and don't need anything like that. Again, once you've got the objective marker set up, kind of does give you a nice reference point as to where these start. So first thing I'm going to do is just get all of the kind of plates down onto the table based on this. Not worried about the terrain, just getting a rough idea, because that would kind of help me later. So kind of one's just positioned off there. Unfortunately, not everything's going to be in frame of reference for this, but it just gives you an example. So then kind of can see that's kind of sitting on the objective like so. We're going to put another one across here, another one across there, another one there, and this is just literally to hopefully make it a bit quicker when you are setting things up. And as you can see, it just takes a few seconds to kind of throw that together. Then the next step after that is to kind of start measuring up the different elements. So again, the reason I like this one is purely just because, as I said in the previous part, you've got the measurements for every single bit all over, whereas annoyingly WTC one, sometimes they only have 1/2 measured, which if you're setting up at an event with another player kind of makes it a bit tricky. So I have these included, printed out for my events, easy enough to do, just to have that as a reference. But again, you've got kind of how far from the bottom here. Ooh, there you go. 10 inches and then 2 inches off the edge for this corner of the one that's down here. So I'm going to do one that kind of you actually can see. So we have one of the red ruin ones, this one here just below the center objective, which you've got a corner that is 19 from the edge and 13 from the longboard. So just measure the 19. Again, as you can see, it wasn't that far off, only about 1 inch, which just again, and that is perfect already. So that's that corner already done. Then you have the other corner on this side is 14.5 and 17. So 14 from the short, and then 17. So again, with this one, it's slightly off. So I just kind of need to hold down and pivot to get it into that right place. You might have to again check a couple of things to make sure that you've got that in both places, 13, 19, yep. And there you have the first plate done. I'm not going to create a video where you watch every single one, but again, it's just a case of adjusting, but you know, things are already part way there. So next part, we'll have the whole kind of table set up. Now all the plates have been measured and are in the correct places where they should be on the table. I'm doing Crucible of Battle layout 4 and 5. So this is kind of one of the classic medium. However, WTC have kind of removed that as an idea. Now that these are set up correctly, I can just put down these, and that kind of covers that there. And then you've got the 2 sets of containers. They are always in every set double stacked, so they will be one on top of the other, so it creates that certain sense of height. Again, it's always fun doing this one-handed. So there we have those containers there. Again, always useful checking the WTC ones, because one of those ones that it mentioned, there's 110 mil, so you can then kind of just check. So that's a bit out, so it means I need to go back and just double check a couple of the measurements on that, which I'll do in a bit. But again, this is just kind of for reference more than anything else. We then have the red ones are the shorter and the blue are the tall. So as we can see, a blue goes over there. And then we have short ones on the middle, on there. This is the Chaos set. So that is created there, and the floors very nicely folding themselves out. We then have another short one here, right where my map is. So that goes down there. And then we have another short on this one. This one is a slightly sensible one. There are a couple where those are backwards, so it kind of creates a very different space, whereby what I mean by that is rather than it being to the table kind of sheltering, it's actually kind of a bit more open. There are a few layouts that have that. This one, however, is this way around. And then we have another one here. Well, it's always good to go back, check, have I put them in the right place? No, because I couldn't reach where I wanted to go. So tall one goes here, short one goes here. And then we have some more tall ones. Again, the advantage of kind of this style of setup is the whole thing fits in a box this size. I actually fit 2 sets of terrain in a box this size. The only thing I have found that I can't go smaller is because otherwise actually the taller ruins, the 3 floor, don't actually fit. So there we go. So that now is a completely set up table. Everything is correctly to scale for the WTC sizes that I shared in the first part. And again, this just gives you an example of what a layout looks like. One of the things I wanted to do was just kind of go through looking at how models fit. So I'm just going to fix the middle, and then we'll come back and do that. Very quick pause, and middle is kind of sorted. So now it's 110 mil. Again, that is, as you can see on the WTC one, you have the green symbol for knights, bases of 110 mil being able to fit through there. So again, if you are ever on a WTC table and you are unsure as to whether your model will fit, at least it then gives you that frame of reference to work from. So it's always worth kind of checking. So here I just have a kind of selection of models just to showcase different sizes. Turns out the Lancer is really dark, and the lighting in my dining room is amazing. So here we have the Lancer. Again, spoke about yesterday the kind of sizes where a model can fit underneath. So here we have one of the short ruins where you've got that 78 mil gap underneath the first floor, and then I think it's 230 space. So as you can see here, the front half of the Lancer, Gladiator Lancer, fits underneath that space without lifting up these. However, I can't fit the whole model underneath because you have the turret which then kind of clips with there. So it's really good as a reference so that you know when you turn up to the event, is my model going to fit under there or not? So for comparison, hopefully this Predator, which again, because they're not on a base, their profile is a bit shorter. This Predator, unless you've styled it with, like I have, with the space for the holder, will fit underneath. So there are some considerations. Mostly Rhinos will fit underneath because they don't have the turret on top. Unfortunately, mine's glued, so I can't take that off. But a Rhino-sized vehicle will fit underneath. Again, similarly, we have my Hand of the Archon model with his lovely little bird. He will sit underneath quite happily there, and the level folds flat. The Hellion will also, however, not every single Hellion will, because again, if you pose them, I know for a fact Wolfen will not fit under there, because GW love to have Wolfen with their arms very high up. The next thing in regards to these kind of short ruins here, we have a Castigator Knight. There we go. You have, as mentioned before, these sections here are slightly shorter than the piece. Generally, you take, within the core rules, the total, the highest point of the building being the height of the building overall. However, in this case, because it's specified in the rules, this counts as less than 4 inches for the purpose of models that have rules that are impacted by that, or stratagem. So a Knight Lancer can walk over here without penalty, i.e. he doesn't have to take a battle shock tech, whereas obviously if he was going through the building and going this way, you'd have to roll. Whereas things like Defilers and Thunderwolf Cavalry, there's a couple of detachments where they have that strat to move through terrain features, wouldn't be able to. Here we have in the middle the containers, and as we can see, the Knight fits through because it's a walker model. And the same goes for monsters such as Magnus. They can move through that gap as long as their base fits through that gap. During movement, you ignore the kind of anything hanging over the edge of the base. However, the model would not be able to stop in the middle because his sword would land on top of the building. So that's always worth noting. The other reason I've got the containers here is just kind of to talk through line of sight. So here we have the Hellion here. If we have our Predator sat kind of here, because neither of them are particularly tall, they can't actually see each other, so they won't be able to shoot each other. If we had the Hellion here, the Hellion, the blade and half the base is hidden by the terrain. So the Predator will be able to shoot it because can draw line of sight to the model. It's true line of sight. However, you would get cover because the containers are partially blocking the model. The Knight Lancer, I was going to use a Lancer, but the Knight Castigator, again, has a gun, which is part of why I decided to use him. He obviously has the advantage that he can see over the top because he is actually tall enough to see, which means that if you have, say, Mr. Hellion holding this objective over here, the Knight will actually, because it is tall enough, be able to see the Hellion all the way across, because they are not line of sight blocking, so it is not infinitely tall. They are as tall as they are made, which is the 5 inches. So therefore, if you are facing taller models, you do need to be aware of their line of sights and things like that, and their heights, just so you can kind of check. And it's always best to have that conversation with an opponent. And similarly, if my Hellion, who's probably slightly daunted now by the presence of it, can clearly see the Knight from that position, so he would be able to shoot with his very ineffective guns at that model. So the other thing is being within and wholly within. So in this case, the Predator is within the terrain piece, it's not wholly within, so it would not be able to shoot the Hand of the Archon model. The Cavalite that is over to the right, it would be able to shoot the Castigator because it can draw a line of sight from the model. Once it is wholly within here, like so, it would be able to shoot the Cavalite and also be shot. It also, because it's wholly within, benefits from cover. The Hellion, partially on the plate, is not wholly within, can't see the Cavalite, but can be seen by the Cavalite. Same goes for the Predator as just shown.
so can do that. Here we have the height I talked about as well while we're looking at this taller ruin. Here we have the Hellion. His guns are normally AP0, but because the Predator is sat below it, he would be able to shoot, and because he is 6 inches from the ground on the second floor, the tall buildings are the only ones in WTC that allow it, he would have plunging fire, AP1. Ironically, however, the Predator is in cover, so it kind of cancels that out. If it was here, AP1 would be great. So that's kind of what the terrain looks like. As a reference, again, this is just one of the styles that I use. All of them are standardized, so as you can see, the taller ruins, there is no windows, doors or anything that you can see through, whereas we have on these the windows that you can kind of see through. So the Castigator can use those to help with line of sight. So although the Predator might be hidden there, the Castigator can see probably through the windows to shoot the Predator. Again, conversations with opponent at start of game. And yeah, that's kind of the WTC setup. I just wanted to show again what it looks like. It is something that once you practice setting it up, you do get quicker. It's worth having that kind of conversation with the opponent to kind of discuss what is being set up, how is it being set up, where are things going, so that you are both clear on that from the get-go. Also making sure you use those WTC setups to be able to have that conversation with the opponent about, actually, my model should be able to fit through here because it's denoted as so on the map, or that middle gap with the containers is 110, so we know that a knight will fit through there. One last thing that I haven't done, where I kind of set it up quite quickly. The ruins themselves should be approximately 22 millimeters from the edge for that reason, and here we have a lovely 25 millimeter model. We have the Cabalite. The model should not be able to fit outside to gain the benefits of cover, so that is why that's done like so, and that kind of is, yeah, the terrain. If you have any questions, obviously leave a comment below. There will be a separate charging guide video. I will be using probably TTS for that, just because it's slightly easier than doing this setup, but again, much harder on TTS to set up tables. So step 1, lay out your objectives as you normally would. Then step 2, lay out the terrain plates, whether that's acrylic, cardboard, neoprene, whatever you are using, roughly, just to kind of give yourselves a sense of where they are, and then from that measure and adjust, because it is a lot quicker than doing them individually, as you kind of get a sense of space as you develop from seeing the others as well. And yeah. Look forward to seeing you at the events, whether that is the Voidstorm Games ones or at the Kent Teams happening in March.